I mean, it's like for you closing your eyes or you blink really quick and your eyes are closed. All of a sudden you see in a different way of color, but then you open back up. But yeah, you was gone. You was gone. And to have thousands of people doing that, and versus when you're at a smaller club, there's hundreds, but here you have thousands literally.
Let's get this started. Today is Friday, December 11th, 2020. Who are we speaking with?
Well, name is Oscar Reyes, and born in Harlem on the west side, and grew up most of my years in the Bronx.
Where in Harlem and where in the Bronx?
West side of Harlem, Lenox Avenue by 112th Street. And we was there to about 7 years old. And then we relocated to the Bronx. And we was in the Bronx area, not too far from Tremont. And they have a big expressway that's called the Cross Bronx.
Fantastic. So let's get right into it. What is the Paradise Garage?
Paradise Garage. Well, you got to go back to when originally, before they came up with that idea, from what I heard from older people, is a place called Reed Street, where Larry was also playing at before. Mike and whoever else came up with this idea of trying to find a new area to do a bigger venue. So that being said, I'm sure that had to be somewhere late 70s. We're talking about maybe if the garage did this thing, supposedly they got this rent lease at 76, but opened up Labor Day weekend of 1977. So I guess somewhere 76, they might have been doing this thing at Reed Street probably, way before they decided to find this place. And actually, the original plan on it was called Fred's Parking Garage before they eventually changed the sign.
What makes the Paradise Garage so special?
The people, Larry himself, the staff. I would gather to say before they went into the construction parties, you had different people from different clubs that would come in there. You had a lot of people that came there from the Loft, also the gallery. Okay. They made up a big population of that movement that was going on in its early days of the garage when it only had one room back then. Okay. So sound system for sure. Eventually, this is now after the construction parties. Prior to the construction parties, the ideas was just coming about, putting together. So you still got to go back to the one room days. And that was going on for almost about a year. It went on from about 77, and then they started the construction parties in 78.
So tell people, what were the construction parties?
Well, once they decided that they was going to start building out on the property upstairs, because downstairs they still had business going on for themselves, making a surplus of money while it was still a parking garage during the day. And while they decided to start constructing and designing the place, they eventually put together the design part of it to build. And some of these parties were named construction parties because even though the one room was still going on, the other part of it was being built at that time. And it was amazing. It was amazing because actually as the room started to open up, they would display it, but you wasn't able to go into it because it wasn't fully completed. So the construction parties went on to about 79. 79 somewhere, because I was speaking with David DePino of the exact date. So they did something somewhere in the winter time, which was around October, before they officially had the 79 New Year's Eve party, which was the grand opening of it.
Ah, okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. And Louis, feel free to chime in as you see fit as well, because I know you were there too.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the people. You said the people made the garage special. Just unpack that. What does that mean?
So everybody that was coming from these different clubs actually, um, for myself, before going to this garage, I actually was going to the Loft and I was going to the gallery. Um, and in each club, they had their own different kind of atmosphere, so to say to speak. And obviously, the Loft was more of the sound cradle where everybody that was into any kind of dancing or music and the other arts would go down here. Okay. And besides the sound, there was a great atmosphere of talented dancers there also. Versus now at the gallery, definitely Nicky being more of a remixing type of a DJ, but he had his own following there. And they actually, the thing that stood with me from the gallery was that they actually had like a little choir, so to say to speak, that stood on these upstep type of thing on the side and would always give sound effects in the background of the sound of the music. So it was different in their own, but the people all in one roof at the garage, whether you was into any kind of arts. It didn't necessarily just have to be dancing, sound, anything else. A lot of people came there and interacted and also did networking. So if not so much that you had to be from New York, because you have people coming in from Jersey also, and even as far as down south as Philly, they were coming in. So in that mixture, I would have to say for sure, if you was dealing with any kind of arts or promotions or stuff, you basically, once they started constructing, yeah, and once it got built, yeah, you was there. You had to come down and, no matter where you was at, and even sometimes from other countries at this point, once it got completely built.
Describe the music that was played at the Paradise Garage.
Um, I would say a variety of music before they put the label called house on it. I would say still, you got to go back to funk. Eventually, um, I mean, you would even hear rock music. So I don't want to say it was just house because it wasn't called house when I was going there. Where I didn't call it house music, and I'm sure a lot of the other people that were there would probably feel the same. So you had a wide scope of music. Actually, I'm sure Larry spent times also at the Loft too. And actually, the way it goes, that Larry was the one. I mean, Nicky was the one that gave him a little break actually, because he basically used to do decorating work before, on the stage and stuff like that. But basically, supposedly Nicky was the one that gave him a shake of playing one time at the gallery, supposedly.
With Frankie Knuckles.
There you go. Thank you.
With Frankie Knuckles. So Frankie Knuckles and I'm sorry, Frankie Knuckles and he used to go to the gallery. And Larry went there too, and they were very close friends, Nicky and not Nicky, but Larry and Frankie. And they saw that idea because what happened is that David was that first person who actually, Mancuso, which was the Loft, was that first person who was able to have a different kind of party, a different atmosphere. And there was a record pool that was given, the first record pool that was given at the Loft, and this was at the Prince Street area. That place happened to be right around the corner from the place he was talking about called the Gallery, where Nicky was. So all these DJs were going to this one guy's place, which is David Mancuso's, to be able to, to get records, to, being a gay community, being able to have some place to hang out and go out someplace and dance. But I mean, it was predominantly white. But then what happened is after a while, those DJs who were at the Loft decided to branch off, as back to what Oscar was saying. They branched off to, Nicky doing the Gallery, where he went to, and then David. And then Larry went and got together with Mike Brody, and they got together and at the garage. And the garage was going to be the same thing like the Saint, which was another gay party, a gay club that was predominantly all white. But Larry didn't like that. He didn't want to have it that way. He didn't mind being a DJ because he was told, Mike Brody was told that Larry Levan was a really good DJ, and you need this guy. This guy is really good. We've heard him at Reed Street. You want to bring him there? Okay, cool. He was going to do that, but Larry didn't like it. Larry didn't mind doing it. He loved to do it, but he didn't want to have his friends with Black and Latino gay men. He's a Black man himself, so he kind of forced and kind of said, "Look, we're going to go and do this." And Mike Brody said, well, "Okay." A little bit nervous, but he said, "Okay," and that's when you had this mixture of it wasn't just an all white. Blonde hair, blue eyed, way of having a club. It was a mixture between that with a lot of gay community, especially gay men of color. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, that's definitely. I mean, and then now that you mentioned David Mancuso, I always said the name of the record pool was For the Records, and also Judy Weinstein played a big part on supporting and helping David while he was putting this together. And actually, Judy Weinstein, she ended up going into doing Def Mix later on with a couple of Frankie was part of it. David Morales was part of there. Hector, I forgot Hector's Romero, is it?
Yeah, Romero.
Yeah, and there was somebody else that was part of that.
No, I'm not sure. I don't want to take that chance and say something I don't know. So.
Okay. And Bianca, feel free if you have any questions for us about anything, okay? And like I said, this is the younger generation. And actually, out here in Hungary, they've been doing a great movement thing with now as they put the label house. I mean, it's worldwide basically. But Bianca and her brother, they both have school trainings a little bit outside of Budapest. Mm-hmm. And they've been doing their business for a good while too, also as dancers, So if you have any input, Bianca, hit us up, okay?
Talk to us about how did you discover the Paradise Garage?
Again, so coming up in the Bronx, we had a couple of places going on in the Bronx. And my high school friend, actually back then we had female high schools and male high schools. And I happened to be going to one of the best ones in the Bronx called DeWittt Clintton. And a friend of mine's, Carlos Roman, he took me to his house. Long story short, they didn't have mixers there. And if you bought a mixer, you had to have money to buy it. So he had a Cuban box. And I was really amazed that the guy, how he did a mix. And I'm like, how did you know when to do it? He says, touch the record. And these guys, well, himself back then, he can tell by the grooves on the record of the vinyl itself when to make a mix. So you had to be really keen on studying your vinyl. Long story short, his friend at school, who happened to be a Latino Puerto Rican brother and gay, invited him down. He had went down to the Loft already. And upon him one time approaching me, listen, would you like to go down and join us? The guy's got a membership. I'm like, membership? I've never heard of a membership club. Never heard of a membership club. So here I am in 76, winter, overdressed, because I was still going to Mid-Manhattan clubs where you always had to get dressed up, overdressed, fell out of place, went down to the Loft with him. So that was 76. And then actually a good friend of mine was in good contact with David Mancuso. So as Louis said, the record pool parties were going on during the week. And upon that, got to know David, not just hello, goodbye. We would actually go to a place called Rocco's, Italian restaurant that he used to always go out and eat. So we started to get to know each other a little bit. And long story short, I got my invite at the Loft for the grand opening of the garage on 77 Labor Day weekend. And we had some property up there in Woodstock. We partied in the Loft all Saturday, and then went to Woodstock, swam a little bit in the waters there, came back down, and it was a Sunday night party because Labor Day weekend, the Monday in the States, basically there's no work in most places. So it was a Sunday party going into Monday. And that's where I got my invitation at.
Wow. You were also part of the staff at the Paradise Garage too.
Yeah, the brother's name is Gathan Waters. Gathan I met years ago through working with each other, and they needed extra help. So we was working a day job together. He's like, Oscar, man, would you be willing to come down to the club and work with us in the coat room? So I just went as an extra, you know. And upon that, worked a couple of nights with them. And then I got approached by Michael directly. You seem to do well with the co-workers. Would you want to do a manager position and run the coat room and the staff there? I took the offer on. And so I got blessed, and this was 78. I'm trying to think, was it summer? Yeah, I think it was the summer because I know the construction party still wasn't started yet. So we were still in one room at this time. So at this point, if you had a good idea and you was in good terms with Michael, yeah, he would listen to you. And if it made sense, he would go on and pursue it, because he had a good working staff or whatever, electricians and so forth, the carpenters, the whole bit. So I'm thankful as time was going on that he heard I can give my input on my idea of what can be done in the cold room as it was starting to get built. He passed the information over to the carpenters, and yeah, it worked out. And then eventually we even put shelves where we could put the backpacks because everybody came with a change of clothes. Most of the people that went out to the garage, you basically would change your clothes. You didn't go in on the dance floor with your same set of clothing. And got to manage it for 1 year. And it was through the whole construction process from 78 to 79.
Wow. You also have amazing photos from the garage as well.
Again, on Michael's behalf, I would go and ask permission. It wasn't like I just brought my camera. I always had a camera with me, but I didn't just go out. So it was like to him, as long as it wasn't disturbing nothing on what's going on as the party night was going on and stepping up to people, and doing things in a proper way. So it led me to where it was okay for me to have my camera and take photos. So I took advantage of it, and as we talk now, quite a bit of whatever movies that were out, they still use it, but I also passed all the photo stuff that I had to David DePino. So the last movie that they just did also in Europe, some Italian guys, I think they did whatever part of
it. It was Larry's Garage?
Yeah, the last one. Some Italian guys, I believe, right?
Yeah, there was Larry's Garage and there was another one too. We keep going. I'll find it real quick.
Okay. But anyway, ended up that yeah, and like I said, I don't have a problem because we always stayed in good terms. Me and David and Joey. So, and I figure it's about sharing the history. So yeah, and I'm sure when David spoke on his part, the photo came back up again where I had caught Larry out in front one morning, and how am I going to say this in polite way? This gallery group of dancers on that photo, I had met them at the gallery, but they had a really good rapport with Larry and getting feedback these first early on parties while it was still in the construction mood. And he would adhere to what they had to say of how the party night went, and what he might have played and how they felt and stuff like this. So in this photo, you can see him actually, when I was taking the photo, I can hear him getting and asking them questions and, getting feedback, which is a great thing. I mean, you don't see that all the time, especially these days. DJ ain't gonna go ask the crowd, all the people that were there supporting him or her for that matter, and ask you, how was the night? So yeah, and then, the other pictures I took were I always had a camera with me. Well, I always had a camera. So the other pictures you see, they had the book signing at a club where me and Luce worked at called the Cheetah Club, right, Luce? And that was Jackie, who was a promoter.
That was Jackie McCoy. That was the Cheetah Club was on 21st Street. It was not that far from Deep. And it's but this was that club when we worked there. That was probably more later on. It was after. It was past the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, 2000 or no, like 90 or 2000. I'm not sure what year that was, but
yeah. Yes, so I mean that's the story with me and the camera, man. Like you said in your background, right? You basically been doing camera work for quite a few years, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been
Yes,
photographing.
yes, you did.
Yeah, I've been photographing. Lewis can tell you see my photographs for everywhere.
Yeah. Photographed
So
quite, I guess.
say that again.
You did for a lot of different events back in, especially for Body and Soul 718. You did interviews with other people, even the Body and Soul dancers and the whole staff of that for a while. So you have a nice collection. I'm glad that you're back. And see, you were gone for a while. I was like, I know where you were at, but I just didn't know what you were doing. But I'm glad you came back with that because you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of, and you're a good guy.
Thank you. Good to be back. So let's get into it. The reason why we're here. Talk about dancing at the garage.
So I would say you have to go back to the one room, and at this one room, the system and Larry was right there with us.
Describe the system. Who made it? What did it sound like?
Well, I don't know at this time if Richard Long wasn't involved with the system at that. I don't really know the exact detailed history at the one room and who was behind it, and I don't want to give misinformation. I know after the construction stuff started happening, him and Richard Long were working together. Okay, and it became like actually, and even once the complete construction was done, between Richard Long and Larry and whoever else, but between them two, it became like an experimental room for them. But going back to the one room, David, DePino, or somebody else that was closer to him will probably have more detail on that. All I know at that time, and even today, the shocker that blew me out one night was that Get on the Funk Train was being played, and Larry actually brung an electric train and put it next to the microphone to give him more of this train sound. I mean, and this is just on this one room on the same floor, not where the booth was up, where you can't, not unless you was in the booth, you can see him do things, but this was even like, it stuck with me for the rest of my life, man. Just the mindset to even think of buying a train to give him more sound to it. In effect, I was like, okay, that's not the norm, and the people there at this point, you basically, there wasn't too much room, so if it was a packed night, you was like elbow to elbow trying to find a little space for yourself, and they had another thing was the roof wasn't constructed then. So they actually had where you have the glass roofing and you can see when daylight was coming in. And then when the change in the music would give you a different feel, from seeing that part, and yeah, obviously there wasn't, how could you say it, where a room is situated where the body temperature of so many people actually affects the walls, where actually you get like this sweat coming off the wall. We used to use that term. It's so packed, so many body heats of people that the moisture didn't go nowhere but to the walls. So now it's dripping back on you, so to say to speak. Lewis, what about you when you went to that first floor? I mean, the only room that was there.
Well, when I went there, everything was already constructed. I was looking to see if there was a picture of it. Well, and there's a couple of pictures that are online or whatever that shows the roof and everything else like that. When I got there, I was going there probably in 80, 81. A lot of things had happened there. I think it was a construction party. My ex-girlfriend and her sister would go down there, which was Denise Wallach, which you're good friends with too, and you knew them before I did. The thing is that I'm not sure about as you said before, getting it right to figure out who did the sound system before Richard Long did. But Richard Long was a very famous in the club scene. He did Studio 54. He did a number of other different kinds of sound systems for other clubs, and he wanted to do the garage. They said, do the garage, and he wanted to do that. So there's a picture of, and matter of fact, I have all this stuff. That's not my pictures, but I've seen them, and then I know exactly who they are and everything else. of those events, other than the night that they had the construction, not the construction party, but the night that the roof was the opening night for the roof, and the information for something else, and maybe him and Richard Long and Larry Levan, which is probably online too, you can find. Richard Long was so much of an innovator to give a sound system like that. I don't know who did the lights, but the thing is that it was all about trying to give you an effect. The Loft had given an effect as the first place to give it with balloons, party-like atmosphere. The gallery copied that to a point, but then I can't say about the gallery because I didn't go to the gallery. What the inside was that compared to the Loft, but I think it was a pretty good second. But the garage was a new venue, and they had a new idea, and that idea was giving you a club environment, where, as Oscar was talking about, the sound effects, the lighting effects, the whole room was about to give you an experience. Sometimes, and basically, you really couldn't see Larry because he was high up in the rafters, so you couldn't see where he was at. But when the lights came on a little bit, you could see him, but you couldn't look up because the lights would be blinding you in your face. So you really couldn't see Larry too much, but you could hear Larry. And the most important thing is that Larry was a DJ now should be heard but not seen. And now he's focused on being seen more than heard.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like I said, that one room actually later on became the Crystal Glass Room.
Yes.
That's the story with this first room. If like when people are questioning, and I just tell them that if you was there when it was one room, and like I said, Larry's system was down there, and sometimes, like I told you before, it would be tight for space. And the only thing I can say with that part also is like even when the construction finished, I would say climax time. You know, you can still get to the garage 5, 6 in the morning and get 4 hours in, sometimes even 5 hours. But this climax time, especially in the one room, it seemed like if you looked up into the rooftop and it's starting to get daylight, yeah, unless people would be there at that point, it wouldn't be as packed as the beginning part of the party. So, and how can I say this? Yeah, I don't like to say the term the diehards, but the ones that were there and didn't want to hear him not stop playing, you know, you was ready to hear one more. And actually, if he stopped, you know, the applause would start happening, but then we would start just singing out from our, you know, just yelling out and singing our own type of thing to get him to play again, or another record, or another last record type of thing, you know? So that went on regardless if it was in the one room, and even when they had the full construction party set up and it was done and completely open.
Oscar, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You remember the confetti?
Of course.
Explain to how the confetti.
I mean, well, that's go. I mean, so they actually, part of the effects that was set up there, and they was set up to different spaces in the garage. This is already now complete construction, and on certain records and certain times. And I'm sure Larry was doing it from the booth, because a lot of the control stuff that was done down there, I mean, the guy didn't just play, but he was doing lights sometimes. And I mean, eventually he did have a full-time hire light person, but at the beginning, Larry was doing a lot of the setup and controlling some of this stuff, you know. And the confetti, I mean, you could hear it when it popped out of this device that they had set up, you know, and you know, it would shoot out, and then it would be, and everybody's yelling at the top of their lungs, you know, you know. So it's there will never be a place duplicated like that. Listen, they had like 4 or 5 rooms. They even had a movie room. Could you imagine going to a club and you can watch a movie? You know, I don't know no places that had that movie room. You know, and the concession stand was very big, and they had where you could sit down, you know, grab something to drink, you know, get a second wind, you know. Yeah. And then obviously the punch bowl, right? The punch bowl, right? So I mean, the one room experience though, and you seeing it being built, and you're there at that time. Yeah, I think for a lot of us that were there at that moment and seeing this stuff being built and constructed, you live in a journey of history being made at that time. And to be part of it was a blessing for sure, without a doubt, for everybody that was part of it.
What did it feel like being at the Paradise Garage? Describe that feeling, being on the dance floor when Larry's in the zone and playing a record that everyone is losing their mind to.
You go somewhere else, man. You're there, but you're not there, and you're in a whole nother dimension at this point. You're in another dimension, and then okay, obviously it was less people in the one room. Full construction, you can go up to several thousand, more than 1,000, and then at this point, if Larry caught us at that point where everybody is in harmony and actually you're singing in the same note at the same time, I can't explain it to you if you have never been around a mass in that type of situation. But then the sound system, and even when he did the surrounding sound part, I mean, the best place to be at that point, if you knew it and got hip to it, was to be in the center part of the dance floor. And I mean, to me as a dancer, yeah, I spiritually wise, I went somewhere else. I mean, it's like for you closing your eyes, or you blink really quick and your eyes are closed, all of a sudden you see a different way of color, but then you open back up. But yeah, you was gone. And to have thousands of people doing that, and versus when you're at a smaller club, there's hundreds, but here you had thousands literally. I mean, 79, I had to close the coat room down after hanging over 3,000 coats because we had tickets. There was no more place I could hang. And I just told the people, I'm sorry, you got to take your stuff in with you. And that was just in 79. The numbers started going higher because then they had this core membership that came later on. So
describe the different membership types at the Paradise Garage.
So there was only one type of membership going on. As soon as the construction parties took place, there was only one membership, and then 79 came in, and they decided to come out with this core card.
Was it the wrench before? The wrench was before.
Oh yeah. And actually, I got pictures of the wrench thing. I sent it over. Oh man. Yeah. As Lewis says, there was a part, and this was during the construction party. Actually, during the construction party, they came out with a wrench membership. To recognize that we was, fixing up stuff and stuff is under construction. Okay.
I don't know if I can show you.
There you go. Show the history, buddy. All right.
Is that reversed, or is that? Can you see it regular?
That's perfect.
Okay. Yeah. That's the construction party. But wait. I'm trying to figure out. I can show it to you on a glass, whatever.
Yeah, we saw it when you had it up for the first time. Yeah. So going back to that, they came out. This is before the core card came out. They had the wrenches going out for the construction party, and
it was a little small wrench that had a number on it that was engraved on it. So, the wrench was a manly kind of macho kind of symbol, and they had this wrench, a little small pocket wrench that was about this big, that you could put your keys on it. And as you said later on, they switched it, but they had a little number. I heard that was engraved on it. I never had a wrench. I think I have a picture of a copy of somebody that had the wrench, but I wasn't. But this is somebody else that put this. I'm not sure if this is.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Good one, Luz. Yeah.
There's another one too. As we speak, I'll find it.
Yeah. So the core thing took place later on after the build was completely built. And actually, how can I say this? There was my part in the business part in my back of my head, I'm not saying that's what Mike and whoever else decided to do, but I know, obviously you need to support your whatever payments of what you get to do after doing a construction thing from one room and going to all this. So, and then actually there was a movement of other younger kind of people coming in. I don't want to put it as classified as this, that, the other. And they decided that they would do this kind of a party on a Friday, and then the core card person, if he accepted you in the interview to give you the core card, you was able to go to both. But actually, I still would say at this point, the better party was on Saturday versus Friday.
You have to, and you're gonna, and you're right. The better party was on Saturday. This thing is that you had to be recommended to get a card. So that means you got interviewed. You went into on the middle of the day, probably on maybe a Wednesday or Thursday afternoon after work. They would have membership drives, not membership drives, but membership. So what happened is you could get before it was only one kind of one night. There was 2 nights. There was Friday and Saturday nights for the gay community, predominantly gay. Women could get in if they could get in with a gay friend, but a lot of girls used to like going to the garage because it was a place that they had a lot of freedom at. They didn't feel that they got picked up by other, by guys and things like that, at a regular straight club. So the gay community was a great place that they could actually dance and have fun and dance with other guys and dance with other people having fun. So it was a really good experience for a straight woman to go there. So eventually people, let me get this right, that the staff or Mike Brody or whatever realized, we gotta, I know we have a gay crowd, but there's a lot of straight people want to come here. And they probably said, we'll let a Friday night be a little bit mixed, straight and gay. But on Saturday, it has to be a gay crowd. The gay crowd, the song called Gay Crowd happened to have it was a Saturday. So it didn't have to worry about having straight guys that they wasn't sure about or anybody they didn't want. They had to pick their own people to be there. And that was done by membership. So you could, if you were first time there, you had to get, you got member, you went there to the club on an off day. And this was like once every, I think it was like 2 times a year or 3 times or 4 times a year. I think it was 3 times a year, but 2 times a year that you have to go and get a membership. If you want to get it renewed, you can still have your own membership, but each year you got a new membership. So when you went there to get it, you either got your Friday night membership that you could go in, but the Friday night could only get you into Friday night. You couldn't go on a Saturday night. But after going to after going to the garage on a Friday night, you wanted to switch to Saturday night because Larry played his heart out more on a Saturday because that was for his core crowd.
Yeah, there was events. There was more artist events on Saturday nights also. Where artists, singers would come in. So they swung it more to where, again, that Saturday nights was much more productive for everybody, business-wise, and also the artists, and also Larry himself, Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Great one.
Why is baby powder important in the Paradise Garage?
You got to go to the Loft with that one, man.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to come straight up with that one and tell you the first time I seen baby powder ever on any dance floor at a club space was the Loft. And I mean, religiously, I'm sure I can say that in Vouch for Loose too. When we go out and it's something of a reunion and this and the other, we got a small little baby powder with us. Well,
let me tell you something. The last time I saw you at the garage reunion party, I was standing there and you were like, "Luce, you got baby powder?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." grabbed the baby powder, never came back with it. I had to grab you and say, dude, where's my baby powder?
I'm sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, so the baby powder thing for me, in my first experience, like as I can vouch and say with Luz, it was at the Loft. And it carried on with the people that dance and they use
the house community. And the baby powder is this. The reason why baby powder was considered was when you're dancing, when you have a good dance floor, you can do anything on it. You don't need anything to slide on. And what happens is that when you have different surfaces, they don't give it that same consistency of movement. So you add baby powder to give you a different kind of feel. It's like you could, example, if you put water on the floor and you try to dance on it, you would, when you get wet, you wouldn't be able to have a certain consistency of doing it. So make it pretend it would be like ice. On ice, if you do a certain amount of movement, you can go and then you can slow down. Well, that same thing where you're on ice, where you can speed up and then slow down because your momentum slows you down, is the same thing which you do with baby powder. Baby powder gives you a kind of a slippery, but depending on how much you put on the floor, smoothness. So a lot of us that went to the Loft used to spin a lot. Now, the garage and Loft had two different kind of dancers, and as Oscar said earlier, but you could, to spin and move easily, baby powder was the one thing that we all had in common that realized it gave you that consistent smoothness. Another thing too is after you reach a certain age, you realize that you could do things when you're younger on different surfaces. Like I was able to go ahead and do a spin and jump into the air and come down in a spin on carpet or on concrete. Or, you could do those things. But when you get older, you can't move as easy. And it causes most of us who are dancers to have hip replacements. Because we need to have that free flowing of our bodies to continue the movement. So that's why baby powder, as you say, when you talk about baby powder, everybody in the house community, why I bring up the baby powder is because we want to be able to save our bodies. We want to be able to not have too much friction on our bodies to injure us more than we have, or give us any further injuries, and be able to kind of have the freedom of flowing.
Okay, I mean, I would like to say that on the behalf, especially younger dancers, Bianca and young people, that it's always better to dance on wood, preferable floors than anything else. And I gotta highly take my hats off to the staff at the garage. Me and my friend Gaten that got me to work there, we used to cry in tears every night once the construction was done. Every night before y'all got there to regularly party, because we had to be there an hour or so plus earlier, they would buff the dance floor with buffing machines. And what me and Gaten used to do, we used to say, listen, let's just get our little slide in there. Literally, you could run 5-10 steps and just slide. So if you got there at the time of the doors opening, you can get away without using the baby powder, but then that's another story after the sweat is going on the floor. As you would say, you need to add it in there to make some slide for yourself and so forth. So I got to tell anybody, nice one. Yeah, I'm not in that picture already, but already then I had already left out of there. Yeah, Okay, good one. Yeah. So going back to the baby powder, I would say, and even when I'm telling people and spreading that part of it, I would always tell them that came back from the Loft times of when I was partying myself and other people back then that was going to the Loft.
Describe the dancing at the Paradise Garage.
Different. And I don't like to say and put a label on stuff myself because how can I'm going to put it this way, and simply put it is that I don't know if you can see them back there, but let me bring them up close. So you can see them there now, right? Okay. So these are my gang colors, and they probably, yeah, sometime in the 70s. I guess between the garage shirt and this, the colors are older than the garage shirt. And the only reason why I'm going to mention this part is that the difference in 5 boroughs of New York City is the same thing. Like when you go to, the rap and you got Run DMC coming out of Queens, the Bronx were pioneers of a couple of things before they put labels on it. And for a long time, before I even got to the underground clubs, whether they would consider gay and underground, coming out from the Bronx.
Hold up a minute.
Yeah.
Explain to people what's the difference between an underground club and a regular club.
When they used the label called underground, and at this point it was a club obviously established by membership, and David Mancuso's Loft was the first place where he lived at, and they were basically predominantly for gay people. Whether it was mainly males at this point during the movement after the 69 big battles that happened in Christopher Street and so forth, because they didn't have places where they can party, and it wasn't legally so-called at this point. So after 69 riots, as his label, they eventually so-called in the political systems of whatever way it was that they were allowed to have events as such. And David was one of the first ones that catered to that, and also was in the mainline politically in the protests or doing that kind of stuff. So when the first time you didn't really say it that way, you either say gay, but basically these underground clubs as labeled was cause of that political movement at that point, and basically predominantly they were mainly gay.
There's one part too, is that we call them shoe parties. Shoe parties is when you go, you get dressed up and you're dressed to look really good to go into the club. Because a lot of times they didn't want to have people coming into clubs. And this was not during the disco era, which meant that everyone used to, they had ways of discriminating against you to come into a club. And one way was by how you dressed. So they made sure that you dressed very nice so you wouldn't get in fights. Because the more grimy you look, the more you might be a person that would be a roughneck or a person want to start fights. So they got like, you know what? If you look good, you're not going to fight, which is a good point. The thing is that when you have, during that time, that's disco in the 70s, underground clubs were clubs that, again, was private membership clubs, as Oscar said. And another part of being underground was that there was no flyers. There was no way of getting in touch. It was word of mouth. It was word of mouth, and it was membership. And being underground played music that wasn't played on the radio. These were records that were the B-sides of songs. These were songs that you didn't hear when you see. The only time in the 70s and the 60s and 70s, the only time we got a chance to hear music, we heard music was on the radio. That was a major part of listening to music was on the radio. If you had music, you had a record player or whatever, a recording device, to play music. That's one thing. But to go outside to a club, you only heard the pop music on the radio. But when you went to an underground club, you didn't hear the pop music. You heard the underground music, which was an artist that wasn't mainstream. It wasn't Stevie Wonder. It wasn't the Four Tops. It wasn't a well-known artist that you know of. These were underground artists that didn't play, like Femi Kuti, and and this was talking about they were playing things that wasn't American music. They were playing everything from they were playing not just American music. They were playing everything from gospel to jazz to funk to disco. It wasn't just a quote unquote poppy music. It wasn't like my favorite songs they played. So that's another reason why the garage was very popular too, because they were the radio stations were making money off of people buying the music because the radio stations played the music, and you wanted to buy the music that you heard from the radio station. So you went to the record shop and you got a record. What happened is that the garage was one of those places where the music was so interesting and so good that people would leave the record store, go around to the record, no, we leave the club because they heard these songs that they didn't even know what they were, but they could hum it or whatever. And they would go to these shops and say, hey, question, you have so-and-so record. Now, this made a lot of record stores scratch their heads because they didn't know this music was not played on the radio. So why are these people asking for these songs, which we don't have? Now, the radio stations, one called BLS, was realizing that, you know what? There's a lot of people asking for this music and we don't have it. Where is this music coming from? It's coming from this club called The Garage. So instead of having a club, instead of having the DJs to get the music from the radio stations, no, it was the other way around. The radio stations and the record shops had to get to understand the music from the DJs, because the DJs were the people who were now giving the new music out.
That's facts. Tell us about the Imperial Bachelors.
At this time, early 70s, in New York City, in the Bronx itself, through all 5 boroughs, there was different street gangs. And
why?
There was different street gangs. And,
why?
And basically, so coming off the late 60s, going into the early 70s, you didn't go to certain parts of your borough, no matter what borough you was living in, and you wouldn't go to certain areas if your culture wasn't part of living there, actually.
Danger.
You just don't know. Okay? Now, when the gangs came out, whether they were white, blacks, Latinos, and stuff like that, this Imperial Bachelors were basically a lot of Latinos and definitely blacks involved in them, and they were one of the biggest gangs through all 5 boroughs. Eventually, somewhere in mid-70s, in the Bronx at Boys Club, they had a big peace treaty arrangement set up, where instead of the gang people beating up each other, our own Latinos and black brothers beating up each other and killing each other, we decided to have this peace treaty. And way before going to any clubs that I ever went to, when we used to do parties in the auditorium, and especially in the Bronx, they had a place called St. Mary's Recreational Building down in the south part of the Bronx. And actually a guy by the name of Willie Estrada did a movie that Netflix picked up called The Get Down. And it had to do with the movement of where all of a sudden we're doing battles instead of beating up each other. And before they labeled it and put B-boys to it later on in life, actually at this time, you basically, even myself, I had a partner, and it was a male partner that we used to team up to battle our part of our gang against another gang. And the circle thing started happening back there before I went into any other clubs and seeing that at clubs. And at this point, myself, actually, you know, when they talk about different dances and stuff like that, I guess your background physically, whatever you might have did in gymnastics or the martial arts. And it so happens that when me and Joey, we met at the Garage, but Joey and I, Lanos, who does he plays with David DePino doing the reunion parties, we come from 3 families. And the first family we come from is a marching band, a drum and bugle band. And he was on the drum line, I was on the drum line, we was in 2 different marching bands. And then later on, obviously, besides him being security, and he's a sensei himself, it so happened that my president of my gang, this guy named Miguel Lopez, actually, him and his son is only 2 pair throughout the East Coast and probably most of the US that are grandmasters. And I started doing that also. So me and Joey, we got the 3 families of drum and bugle band, also the martial arts, and then working at the Garage. And going back to the gang thing, like I said, early on, even when we did these battles, later on, I didn't know, oh, now I'm at the clubs, they doing it at the clubs. And now when you go fast forward into whatever year we're in, 2020, it's an international thing, battles. But did it start now? No, this started way back then in the gang days, before it even went international.
So this is pre-break. So this is
other clubs and so forth. So that's the story for me in the gang part. And yeah, there's some of the ones that are still alive, and I still keep in contact with them. Every time I go home to New York, I mean, not because of this COVID, but prior to that, they have a dojo. I pay my respects at the dojo. And there's some of us that are still around, but overall, yeah, it was a great time for me. And later on, when I was still in high school, what I used to do to one of the guys that started playing early on before they label and the DJs were coming about, they had a chain of stores called Crazy Eddie's. And the first one I knew of where we had a shop for style equipment was in Brooklyn. And the reason why I'm just mentioning that, again, the gang part. But music would open doors in any kind of borough. So you was accepted. And even when I'm taking the train, one of my friends says, yo, we're going to Brooklyn. We're going into the Italian neighborhood. He's like, yo, they won't bother us too much. They're going to know we're going to Crazy Eddie. So we have to get hassle. We just telling them, listen, we're coming to Crazy Eddie. So we're paying and supporting them. They won't hassle us. So yeah, the gang days was a great learning experience for me. I'm thankful I never got caught up in whatever killings or nothing of that nature. Because when we came up, we basically try to protect our community. And even on a point where there was indifferences because of cultural parts, we would protest in a peaceful way. So that's always been a treasure part. And then I don't want to say the clubs are like that, but again, when the garage started, you had the gallery people, you had the Loft. I'm not going to say they were a gang, but they were from different clubs.
So tell me something. Was that, Oscar, is that a territorial thing? When gangs had territories that they realized?
Basically, yeah. I mean, that still goes on today. I mean, if you fast forward, it still goes on today. I don't think that would never. I don't think it would never be in none of our lifestyle. This is worldwide, and even in countries, even when you travel out the U.S. So that being said, what we started to do though after the peace treaty, you can go to other gang clubs' house, but you had to turn your colors in. So let's suppose I'm going to your place and you're the Black Spades. I'm coming into your place out of mutual respect. I would turn my colors inside out, and we can still have.
Explain to her what colors are.
Oh, Bianca, do you know what we're talking about with the gangs?
There's a lot of stuff we're talking about, which we have to really clarify more in a way, because those things that we experience, I understand what you're talking about, but it's hard for her to understand, how that's happening. Because, for example, what he was trying to say real quick, I know you have some questions, Bianca, because I saw your little thing, but here's the deal. Back in the Bronx, up in the 70s was crazy. It was like the wild, wild west. There was shootouts, there was all kinds of stuff like that. There was stabbings, there was gangs. These were all in different parts of boroughs. So what happens is that these gangs that they would have, they these different gangs would branch out to different other areas. But basically the gangs were basically to go protect their area they were at. If I was in one gang, and Oscar was in another gang, and I went to his area in his part of town, and I came in with my jacket on, I could get either beat up or stabbed or killed. So I had to, as the colors was whatever logo you had on the back of your jacket, or what other colors that you had that matched your gang. When you went into an unknown territory or another location, you had to take off your jacket so they wouldn't see that you're part of a gang. So it was a way of protection to take off his colors, his shield, his style, his where he comes from, who he was, because you could get killed.
So Bianca had some great questions here. The question number one, Bianca, I'll let you ask the question.
Okay, I had to write down so I don't forget about it. So my first question would be if there are still places in Europe or in America where us young generation, we can experience that similar feelings than in the garage, like those clubbing and those feelings and vibes. Because honestly, clubbing here in Hungary is not nice. It's not real. It's just young kids drinking and the music I don't like. It's just mainstream and I kind of miss like those parties like at jams or battles, like the after parties of the battles where all the dancers are there, and there's a totally different vibe than in mainstream commercial parties, which is widely spread here in Europe. So if, for example, I would like to travel to America if this pandemic is over, and I would like search some history or like get the feeling of what you experienced. What would you give advice? So where shall I go, or where can I experience something similar?
I would say the first place close to home. I mean, and if you things get better, it will be the crossing border of Austria, Vienna. Okay. They have I don't know if you ever she came to Poppy's camp sometimes, and when Poppy did the last camp, her name is Tina. Her first name is
Yes,
Tina.
I know her. Yes.
So Tina, she her boyfriend is originally from the States. He's African American. Actually, he came. I left the last day, but he came and he played. So her boyfriend and her, they collaborate and they do Jack. What's it called? Jack something party.
Jack
Jack.
in the House.
Yeah, yeah, and it's in a nice location in Vienna. Um, that kind of music atmosphere, but then the dancing part, since there's a lot of dancers from the Vienna part and also other parts of Austria, they usually come into Vienna and they party. You'll get the feel there,
Mm-hmm.
and also Archie Burnett, that travels with the dancing. He comes in, and he usually comes in regularly. We just spoke a couple of days ago, because I just told him this interview I was going to be doing it, and actually he comes in usually, and as we're speaking, I know something's going to happen in Florida if things change, but eventually he was already booked to come out to Vienna. So if he does come, it's usually in August, but we'll be in contact and I will let you know. But going back to New York now, if things did change, if I'm safe to say that, right, Luce, the garage always does a reunion party still, right? If things change back at home.
Yes, it did, but you have to remember the pandemic is changing a lot of things. And
Okay.
basically, I see that more outdoor events are being more safer.
Okay.
And basically, you can see even it's about being safe when you're doing this, because the pandemic in the United States is so bad, not yet and so bad because no one has gotten themselves together to get it right. But that's political.
And what about the one that they do in Brooklyn, the outdoor one, Fort Greene?
So you have outdoor events, and we've always had outdoor events, and these outdoor events now have to be with mask only, hopefully to give you, and really we're supposed to be, a couple of feet away from each other. But there was a place called the St. James Party. It's called the St. James Joy Party. If you go on Instagram, you can see that same kind of feeling. So, and I'm just giving you the ideas of how these parties are still going on now to a point. Not now, but the past couple of months they were. I don't know, but the St. Joy Party does have outdoor events where they're dancing in a parking lot or dancing in places. And so there's roller skaters do the same thing. So the thing is that the experience that you were asking, and I think you were, like that same experience, how the garage has that same open, good feeling with a whole lot of people. St. James Party can do that for you. We used to have Fort Greene that had that kind of environment. Lots and lots of people, they're all dancing with each other. They're all appreciating people dancing. I know, where you're probably at is very hard because you have a lot of, the dancing is not important there, but it's only important as a kind of a battle thing. And when you're a dancer, you don't feel that you have to battle someone to be accepted as a dancer. It'd be great to be a dancer to express yourself. And when we went to the garage and we went to the Loft, we went to the gallery and other places in New York after years, we went dancing because of enjoyment, to release yourself, to what do they call it again? Exchange with someone when you're dancing with them. It wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about the performance of it. It wasn't about the beating up and battling of someone, you know, to do that. And the difference is that you don't need alcohol to be able to dance. As a dancer, you know. The problem is that how do you have a venue to have dancing when there's so many people, I mean, that they're sharing the stage with someone? That means if I'm where you're at, and I'm gonna have a party, I have to do it on a bar with other people that are not dancers. And those people there are drinkers. And all they wanna do is drink and not dance. So then when you are there, you're kind of like lost because I wanna dance, I hear the music and the music's not good because the DJ is not playing music that's danceable. He's just playing what he wants to play. So it's a very tough thing for you to be where you're at. But when you go to, if you look at the St. James parties and you see that kind of environment, that kind of love, that kind of that respect of dancing, the dancers come first, the DJs come second, and that's what you do. You can get the same thing in Paris. There's certain groups in Paris that are doing that kind of outdoor dancing where they're being very freely with it. I forgot, a friend of mine does it in Paris that they do it. It's like this outdoor kind of venues that they have, and they just dancing and have a good time, and everyone's dancing with everyone else. That's the experience you want to have. You could have it, I think, in Amsterdam. I'm not sure. They still battle orientated, but they're maybe a little bit more lightened up a little bit more. But I understand your frustration of being a dancer, trying to find a venue to dance in, especially when your home is not the place to do that. And the pandemic is hard to find places. So in New York, we're always going to find a place to dance, even if we go underground. Even if we do exactly what we did back in the 80s, which is whenever the government is messed up, whenever people are poor, whenever people are frustrated because they're not getting respected, because of their being gay or being Black or being white or being a female, they all go underground. So you will find it. It might not be now, but go to it's called St. James Place and say enjoy, or St. James Joy on Instagram, and you'll see the parties and they'll let you know when they are. That's a community that you should lock into, because all of our communities kind of latch into each other. Dancers who listen to house music know where house music parties are. So as soon as you find out from one, word of mouth, or somebody else, you connect with somebody else, that lets you have more information. Because I'm in San Francisco, Oscar's there, and it's hard for us to give you that basic answer of exactly what's going on now, because it's so underground, it just pops up. We see the information a day later. Oh, wow, they had a party out in the roller skating rink. They had a party out on the Brooklyn Bridge. All those things. The thing is, you have to get connected with those kind of organizations, those parties, and then connect with other people who you see on Instagram and find out where they can do it at. So when you are going to go to New York, or you are going to go someplace in the United States, or you can find it over there, you can connect with them.
You had a second question. Do you want to ask the question? Number 2?
Yes. So basically what you have to know before I ask the second question is that I got to love with urban dance. So for a couple of years, now 10 years ago, so hip hop, house, disco, funk music. My favorite styles are walking and house music, because I just love the feeling of it. and whacking, because if in any mood I always hear disco funk and whacking music, I get like cheerful and I really love it. So that's so my style. And so we felt like responsible for the culture, that we got so much from it, so we want to share it with the young generation so it keeps alive. And so that's what we're doing in Hungary. And we try to keep the original style, but we never know everything. So I'm glad that Oscar invited me to this Zoom meeting, so I can get to ask some of the really source. And I really want, so my second question is, we share with the kids like the urban styles, hip hop, house, and whacking, and that's our main profile. But we don't want just to keep them unique in those styles and to make them brave of who they are, but also to share that clubbing feeling, what you are talking about, because like that's how somehow the origin. And my question would be, how can I, or what do you advise to me? How can I share with kids, or how can I make them open up for clubbing? Because kids in Hungary really like competition, and the whole, they look at Instagram, Facebook, and they're always like, how you say, comparing each other. Can I, yes, and how can I bring them on the way of clubbing and sharing, and make them open up for something different than what they used to? Because I feel like sometimes they got so they have troubles with themselves and self-confidence, because they say, oh, I'm not good enough and I have to prove and I have to compete with others, and then they get closed, they close up, and then they can't open at dance, and they feel like, oh no, I'm in a bad mood, I'm not so good. And I would like to share with them, because when I go to clubs, since I go to clubs since I'm 17, I'm going to clubs to dance. What Louis was telling about, I'm not drinking alcohol, I'm just going, enjoying music, and just dance all my emotions out. And that's just such a good feeling afterwards. Like you feel like you're like flying, and you feel free. And I want to share with the kids those feelings. But what would you advise to me? How can I get to this source of dancing, or that type of dancing? How can I bring them on this path?
So I the time I've been here in Hungary, and even when I connected with Poppy Zolt, and the thing is to be able to communicate, even on any time if you're doing a session as you teach, I would try to tap myself into what I can share verbally before I start the lesson. Like I would probably have a message of something to do with them, to tap into their inner part of how this thing of dance, it's a way of how to relate. And obviously the maximum part of the body language is that you do it without talking, but you got to be able to understand yourself first before you go to bring it over to somebody else. And in actuality, where for my hairs are standing up as I express this now, my highest point of when I meet somebody for the first time, because you don't say hello and you walk up to them. So in the circle scenes, not circle scenes, but in the dance scenes of most of the clubs that I've been to in the past, where you look first, then you verbally, again, you got to bring it to them verbally as before you do the lesson, and let them know this part of you, to try to open yourself, not so much that in a selfish way, but trying to open up others as I'm spreading the love of dance in that way. And also where we can all go somewhere different at that moment, and afterwards, without even speaking, you come up to that person and you give a hug because you take each other to a different area and time as you're doing this dance in an open, loving way. And for my past experience with this, and even when I went downtown already into the clubs there, even the midtown clubs were being dressed, it wasn't so much I had to be dressed up with this, that, the other. I know at that point where sharing the love in a good way of the dance, not for attention or nothing like that, but to give that out, it comes back. But at the same token, you verbally have to let people know that it's not always about, I gotta outdo myself better than this person. It's about us doing it together for everybody that's around us. And that's a great energy flow from the garage days, from the Loft days, and all these other clubs that when I partied back then, yeah, you get the dances and they did this, but as a whole, when it's maximized like that, when he asked the question, what's the Paradise Garage to me, or what's the Loft? So you figure this other Loft was hundreds of people, the garage was where it was thousands of people, and they can do that amongst each other. And you have to express it to them verbally, because sometimes, for whatever reasons of being selfish and ego part, sometimes we lose ourselves, you know, and you got to stay humble. You got to stay humble. It's the same thing for me. I mean, you know, it's not for me to be higher than anybody else, but I guess the garage was going through this, and me and my friend, before in the West Coast, you had Soul Alive. In New York City, we had Soul Alive, but in the West Coast, you had Soul Train. But, you know, the feeling of where you can dance, like I said, the big battles that are going on now, not because I'm a big battle dancer, the battle dancer that understands that when they even going through this competition, not to outdo that person, is to do ourselves a favor that we go somewhere else and bring the best out of both of us. And even though somebody has to win, but it's not win or lose to me, it's the thing of that we win each other because we went somewhere else and took each other, you know, to another level, whether it's in a battle per se or amongst hundreds or thousands of people. So you have to talk it to them. So my experience here being in Hungary, and even when I'm in Vienna and I have to talk to the person, and even they're in the battle situation, and even when they had it, because Poppy's camps, they had the battles. And one time, this girl, Kat, I think is her name. Her nickname is Kat. She's from Vienna. She's really good. Yeah, she's doing good with her dance and everything else. But she was so nervous at this one point when she was going into the final battle. And I just told her, I said, listen, relax. Listen to yourself and just let it go. But don't get caught up. I got to be perfect. Ain't nobody perfect. Part of dancing, you make mistakes. And if you're really good at dancing, when you make the mistake, you just keep going. You don't make it seem like I made it. You keep going. That's what does from the experience of good dancing. So you have to express the love. It's got to be the love you got to express. That's the best thing I would say on that part. Luce?
I've known a lot of dancers, and I realized that in your generation of what you deal with and how you have to deal with your generation of dancers, there's a lot of insecurities because, as you said before, Instagram and all these other TikTok, all these other people are fighting for the attention. It's been done like that, you know, for the past couple of years, where you used to be talented and become famous. Now you have to become famous to become talented. So I know, you know, it's tough for you to figure out where can I find these places. But if I was a teacher and I was where you were at, I would go ahead and take my major students, and I would say, okay, I'm going to make a special party. We have a class. After class, we're going to do something different. Half the classes we're going to be doing some steps, whatever, and the second part of the class is we're going to cut the lights down lower. So you really can't see each other, but you can see each other, but you don't have to, you know, but you're not like focusing. You're not gonna be facing the mirror, because the mirror, you're just dancing with yourself. I want you to dance with the person next to you. And as the song goes on, I want you to dance and do your thing. I just want you to just close your eyes and pretend nobody's there. Just dance like, and give them a word that says, now if you're a dancer and I give you a feeling, I want you to dance off that feeling. So example, the music's going on, but you have the microphone, or you yell out and say, listen, I want you to think that you just, it's your birthday today and you want to celebrate your birthday and you got all the stuff you wanted to, all your friends are here and you're having a good time. I want you to dance like that's happening now. Or if that person is a dancer and been doing, and has been dancing for quite another person is there dancing in that group of people that you have, your students, you say, okay, now we're going to switch it up. Now this time around, the music changes. It gets a little bit slower tempo. It gets a little bit more moody. It could be hip hop, it could be whatever it is, but it has to be something that talks about the emotion. So you would play something that would probably, you would say, okay, your best friend just got in a car accident. You don't know how they're feeling. You feel grief. You feel kind of sad. You don't know what they're going to feel. And you want to express that you care about that person, that you really care about them. You might even love that person, but you care about that person. How would you be dancing to this song with this in your mind? You see, the thing is that the garage and the loft, basically, especially the garage, they played songs that gave you things to do, like reach, all the songs had words that gave you positive messages that told you what to do. A lot of now, like house music is a lot of electronics, so there's no feeling, it's all beats. So you have to get back to listening to music and not be scared for your friends to listen to music and actually understand what the music is saying. You see, it's like going into an art gallery. You don't go into an art gallery and go like, oh, that picture, I don't like that picture. I don't like that picture. You sometimes have to sit back and look very deeply into it and figure out what is that artist trying to tell me? Why is this colors? Why is it this shapes? Why is this whatever? Well, the same thing with a DJ. A DJ is basically a person who's supposed to go ahead and set the mood for you to dance. But in music is, he gives you music to set you in a mood. So you have to, as the club did, as the garage did, as the loft did, is set a mood and gave you music to follow that. So it gave you as I said, if you were a teacher and as a teacher or, in your class, I would make it that would be a special thing for them to do it. It would be something completely different. You would not have to worry, and you make it seem like everyone should give them, it's hard to do it with COVID, you can't give everybody a hug, but you give them a space that they can feel comfortable with and say, not anything you do is not wrong. As long as you're dancing and you're feeling it. The more you feel it, the better you're doing. And they're gonna go like, well, is somebody else looking? It's like, why are you gonna look at somebody else when they're dancing? It's about you. It's your own personal right. Tell them, when you come out to my class to learn to dance, why are you here? Are you here because you want to be in a battle? Are you here because you want to be a teacher? Are you here because you want to be better at something that to better yourself and be a better dancer and try different styles? What is the reason why? And then say, if you want to do that, most real good dancers know how to take their emotions and take their individuality and put it into their dance. And it's hard to do it when you're looking at it in a club environment, but early clubs happen to do that. So tap into your students, tap into your group of people, find the ones that are looking, that want to express themselves out. Because in anything you do, you learn the basics, but then you learn to explore yourself. And when you explore yourself and you take yourself to those other levels and challenge yourself, it's not to be, it's like being an athlete by being an artist. Because if you become, because what happens is what you're seeing is now the battle is athletic dance. It's extreme dance. It's no feeling with it. It's about beating somebody and conquering them on a dance floor. It doesn't mean that you're connecting. So right now you have to let them understand how to before they can connect with another person on a dance floor, they have to learn to connect with themselves on a dance floor.
So well said.
Oscar learned, that's what I learned.
Oscar.
Yes, go ahead, I'm listening.
What do people need to know about the Paradise Garage? Is there anything that I didn't ask that would help people better understand the Paradise Garage, its importance, its relevance, its meaning? How did it change your life?
The topic comes up and I tell people I am thankful for having that opportunity of being there, especially during the construction part and being part of that staff at that time. But I can go almost anywhere around the world because of the Paradise Garage. And them being a pioneer movement worldwide, whether it's Ibiza, and you go on, even if it's the outdoor functions more so sometimes, but the movement of what it did to eventually worldwide open up doors in almost any part of the world. So what I actually do myself, I go on social media, make the contact. I used to work here, so-and-so can give you as a reference. 9 out of 10 times, I may even get picked up at the airport if I go to this country and stuff like that. And I, not that my head is big about it or nothing like that, but I'm really thankful and being able to, how we say, like, keep it in the true light of things, that it was those 10 years, and even from where the club came to having these 4 or 5 rooms there built and everything else. I mean, you overall, and even though, again, coming off from the other clubs, and basically a lot had to do with this Loft setup and David and his movement, and even there's a picture where I have the book signing. And I don't want to put it on like, oh, well, you wasn't there, because sometimes people go on this thing that you wasn't there. Times change and everything else, but you can talk about it and share it the best way you can. And all I would tell a person, like I just told Bianca, we're big in contact, so I'm gonna advise her with some other stuff, and eventually I would like to go down to her school just to talk. And in the talks of it and in sharing it, it's like, even from people from New York that came later on afterwards that weren't there, they asked us what it was like. And I just said, overall, there wasn't no really discrimination. It was all about LOVE while you was in this club. And I mean, how can I put this? I mean, man, I just went to a friend of mine's, and the same thing, like I said, the gangs of this, you had in the club, there were certain areas that certain people from different boroughs or part of Jersey used to go, and they would hang out there that whole night. And you knew if you needed to find somebody that was from Queens or this, that, the other, they're in that corner, they're in this corner. But overall, we all share some love and under the same roof. And again, the networking that went on. If you dealt with different types of arts, you came in there, man. Even if you was a clothing designer, you was there, you came in. So it was, as it called it, the Paradise. It was like Paradise. I mean, before they put Paradise to it, like I tell people, it was just called the Garage at one point. It wasn't called Paradise Garage until they finally, I guess, more so when they completed the club. But basically that year or so that you first went down, you didn't call it Paradise Garage, you just called it the Garage.
That's right.
So overall, it touched a lot of people. I just went last April to the first time I've been here 16 years almost. I never went to London. And the only reason why it pulled me to go to London, and even though Joey called me up direct, but Jelly Bean, I know for many years, David, Morales, I know indirectly, but Joey and I, we always had a good rapport. And the guy that did Ministry of Sound, he went to the Garage. So his original idea, from being whatever spellbound on his experience, he was like, I got to open up something the best way I can close to this, and it's the Ministry of Sound. 10 years later, they're still in business out here in London. I had a great time. When I went out there in April. Just reuniting with some of the guys basically from New York. That was Kenny Carpenter, Jelly Bean, Morales, also Joey, and this is the first time I made D-Train, because even when I went for the dress rehearsal, the sound rehearsal, Joey's asking me, yo, you know who you're speaking to? I said, I don't know. He says, you don't know who you speak to? I said, I know, that's D-Train. I'm like, oh, national anthem song, keep on. So yeah, the Paradise Garage, spirit-wise, it would always live on forever. It would definitely live on forever. And it's good that the younger generation knows about it.
What's your most memorable live performance at the garage?
First choice, bro. First choice. First choice came down. I'm telling the guys in the code room, I gotta get to the. If you know the club, there was after you checked out the code room, on your left side was the 2 bathrooms and then the crystal glass room. But in order to get to the main dance floor, after the code room, you had to walk directly straight and then to a right, and then the floor will open up. When that little room that they had before you went into the main dance floor, it was already packed all the way body to body when they first came down. And for every song, they redressed. But when they did Double Dealing, 2-Time Low Down Son of a Gun, and they pulled out switchblades on the stage, everybody gagged. Yes, they did. They pulled out the switch, they said double cross, and they came out with blades. Everybody was gagging. And actually, my only space that I had to climb on the side of the wall above the crowd to get a view. So for me, the one that really took me out was First Choice. They did also start a guest DJ thing also at one point, and I really wasn't into the booth. I had a good, decent rapport with Larry. Hello, goodbye, but I wasn't into that thing. Let me get into the booth. But let him rest in peace. Because when he was in Better Days and far beyond that, he was always a really humble DJ himself and an engineer background. When T. Scott came to the garage as a guest visit, I went into the booth for one of the first times and stayed there that long as I did. And I mean, besides him blowing out speakers, he opened up that sound system like I think nobody did as far as the other guest DJs that came down. You know, and great times and better days. That's another story, you know.
Who's the worst live performance at the garage?
Oh man.
And I open it up to Peter and Lewis as well. Bianca, you have a question?
No, I just have to go because my phone will shut down soon.
Thank you so much. I'll email you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Stay in contact, okay? And we'll talk soon in the next couple of days. I'll give you some more information about talking to
Okay.
Is that okay?
And I wanted to say a really big thank you to all of you for all the information. I really appreciate everything I heard in the past hours. So, and I'm glad to have met you all. So I thank you and wish you good luck, health, and energy for you all. So thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
Okay,
It helped me really a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us and spending time and asking us questions. I really appreciate that. And keep on passing the love and dance to these young people. And we'll definitely be in contact, okay, sis? Thank you so much.
Okay, I thank you.
That's video tribute too. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you all. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
My apologies for being so late. I tried to get to this Zoom meeting as early as I could, but brother, I'm just so blessed that you've done this. I saw you on YouTube. I discovered you on YouTube doing your thing.
Oh, thank you.
And I just had to, you know, it's like, wow, it just kind of like took me back. I'll continue, I'll be brief. I'm someone from Montreal, so I wasn't as privy to the garage experience as I would have liked to. It's just was where I come from. The garage had a kind of consciousness, but it was kind of below the radar. But I was very blessed that I was able to make it at least one night, and it transformed me as maybe the DJ that I am now, and maybe the man that I am now. So thank you, Oscar, for doing this, and I hope you do some more.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. Thanks for coming in, and it's a pleasure to meet you for the first time also. And like I said, I was really blessed, and also I'm going to try to pass over that Mixcloud that I issued. I mean, you blew me out that 5-hour set. I'm going to pass it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And keep on doing what you're doing in your part of the world. You know?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So the worst performance at the garage.
West performance garage. Okay, I explain.
Go ahead, Lou.
One night they had, you know, it was a Friday night party. I think it was the first one or the first week they had the Friday night party. Basically, my friend he was dancing with this girl that was out on the dance floor, okay, on a Friday night at the garage, and basically, little blonde girl, you know, she had a little funky look to her. She was dancing with him and everything else like that. And one of the things that Larry used to do was he would play the music and everybody into the zone. And at one of the times of the peak of the music, he would sometimes put the lights on really, really bright, all the lights on, and then he would shut them all off. So your pupils would dilate, and then and when the lights went off, you felt you were like in pitch black. You didn't know who you were around, what was going on, whatever. So my friend used to love every time that happened that he would, if he was dancing with a girl, he would drop down and he would like disappear. You know, like he would just, as soon as the lights go down, he'd drop out and scoot around on the floor, and the girl would, and when the lights back on, the girl was standing around and we're like, where's the guy I was dancing with? So he had this like to a science, one of my friends did. So what happened was that he was going to do it with this girl he was dancing with, the little blonde girl, but for some reason she left before he got a chance to do this little move, this little magic trick. So later on, I looked at him and I said, yo, man, what happened to that cute little girl you were with? He says, I don't know, man. I don't know. She just like had to say I had to leave. I was like, she was really hot. Okay. About an hour later, the show starts. And we see, you know, these two black dancers go up on stage, guy and a girl, and the white girl that he was dancing with. And her name was called Madonna. So Madonna started singing. And Madonna wasn't a great singer. She got already hooked up, Jelly Bean hooked her up or whatever, where, you know, she's playing at the garage and he's playing there, whatever. And this was one of the first Fridays. What happened was all those black queens, all those, the gay community was like going like, who's this little white girl? She came and look, after hearing 2 Tons of Fun, after hearing, you know, other strong black women singing, you know, performance, yelling and screaming, you have this little girl doing this little like kind of like little holiday. And it was kind of like they just went boo, 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 and they booed her off, right? And when they went, and she finished the song, but they booed her. And Mike Brody looked at Larry, and Larry looked at Mike Brody like, I told you shouldn't let this little white girl come up and do it at this black club. You know these queens are not gonna deal with this shit. Mike Brody took the mic and said, excuse me, I'm embarrassed. I don't expect you to ever do this to an artist again. We have a Friday night party because we want you people to come here and have another night, you know, a different night. If this happens again and you don't go and give those performers love who come out here from wherever they're coming out to sing for us, we will never have another Friday night party and we'll go back to core night and core night. Everybody was quiet. And then I came back for the second set. Everybody was like, yay!
I mean, oh man, I can't really, oh man. I mean,
were you working then?
I can't really, so I mean, there's some performers, they get there sometimes, you know, and I can't really say a really bad note on somebody because, you know, you're under the influence of different things and it happened with one person and when she got the wrong note, but then she got it together, you know, so I mean, you know, I'm not going to say it was worse, but I can't really say of a worse performance, man, in my experience.
That's cool.
There. Because what they ended up doing also, another thing that was cool, they had the record pool parties because they had West End Records. So they had parties during the week. And if you wasn't, not for members, it wasn't for members. And some of these young guys, I mean, actually, what's this guy's name? The name is going to come to me. God dang. If you want to dance with me, woo-hoo, I can't remember the guy's name right now. But there was a lot of young singers coming up, and during the week, West End record parties that they had during the week, they would pop up, and that was pretty cool. Even Sharon Young, Because when Sharon Young first came down, I always thought, I don't want to say black or white, but I always thought she was a black sister. When she got to the club, I know, and not myself only, but I know a lot of other people was like, that's her that sing. I mean, you know, soul food and everything else. So she blew everybody out when she came to the Crosby performance, Sharon Young, for the first time with the Hot Shot song, you know. So
Karen Young, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite songs. Hot Shot.
I like Detour too.
Yes.
Controversial question. You can choose not to answer this. Did you ever hook up with anybody at the club?
Do you mean take them home, or you mean just hanging out with them?
Or doing something at the club. Let's be straightforward, though. Behind the speaker. Hello.
Well, I didn't even go behind the speakers because it was too crazy.
Answer the question.
I'm gonna answer the question. The reason I think about the speaker thing real quick is I didn't go behind the speaker because I didn't know what males I would see behind the speakers. So I never went behind the speakers, not behind the speakers, but behind the stage on the curtain area. I did not go there. It was like, no, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. So I didn't do that. But when you mean by hooking up with people, it was hard because the problem is that once you hook, you could hook up with a lot of people in there. I didn't try to because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't it's one thing to saute the person to take home like you. It's another thing. It's better for me that I happen to, as I say, saute them, meaning get them all hot and bothered and say, what are you doing after this? Oh, let's have some breakfast. Then you might take them home, but you don't go ahead and just leave the club and take them home because you went there for the club. And extra if you got the girl, but it was never the other way around where, unless you went with a girl and you brought a girl for a first date there, and then you were hanging out with her, and then you realizing you were dancing, and she's like, "Yo, I'm all hot and horny. Let's go home." That's a different situation.
I would say myself, I was involved already with somebody, and actually we met at the gallery, and Barbara Jean, she was a few years older than me, so we was already in a relationship. After we went our own ways, I mean, there would be times I would meet somebody there, and we decide what we was doing afterwards in the morning after we came out, maybe go somewhere. If we didn't end up in Washington Square Park, we used to do they had a place called the Pink Tea House, and go there, have something for breakfast, and then whoever can offer to my place or their place, that happened a couple of times. I never did nothing inside of the club behind the speakers. As the talk went on, there was quite a few people that did stuff right behind the speakers.
Oh, she did, but
during the party night.
That was too scary. I wasn't sure. It's like going into a stall with somebody in the bathroom. You don't want to go in some place that you don't know what you might.
The bathroom. There's. I'll be the first one to tell you.
And I'm going on a Saturday night too. So.
We worked at the Cheetah Club. We worked at this Cheetah Club, not the garage, but at the Cheetah Club. Once or twice I did somebody in the toilet, and just get a quick fix and go back up on the dance floor like nothing happened. I got pictures, right? Okay, I'm up in my hands are off. Let's answer that question. There was a number of people, and working in the code room, I'm going to say this much. Working in the code room, I seen people after several months, sometimes after even 2 months or sooner, they change. And whatever preference they wanted to choose. So I understand what you saw people, from day to in and day out and have conversations, and some people change, and like I said, well, how's this like? Well, how's this going on? Nice one. So going into that, there's some people that did it quite a bit, and working in the code room, everybody always gives you input of what they did the weekend before. So some things, you kept to yourself, which I try to do most of the time anyway. I wouldn't go back and talk people's stuff because then they know who's talking. So overall, there was quite a bit of sexual things going on also. It was a sexual place, man. It was a sexual place. I mean, come on, you're there in a dark room with great music, with beautiful bodies, with hot women, and then you got men next to you. So you're like,
and then the ones who were into men, they were like, okay. And the ones who wasn't, okay. But, the sexual tension was that, the DJ opened you up. And as Bianca was earlier, she doesn't get a chance to do that. We lived at a different time when it was acceptable to be unique, that it was enjoyable to have a venue that you could be free if you were straight or you're gay or you want to go ahead and be a little freaky or whatever. It was that place you could do that by your attitude, by your dress. You came with the attitude. It's like Archie's, like the film that Archie was in, and all of them, which was Check Your Body at the Door. It was really check your bag and check your attitude at the door. Which is, if you check your attitude at the door, you don't come with any attitude. You come with like, I can't be upset because somebody's gay. I can't be upset because I'm not around this to my other people. It's about just accepting who you are and accepting everybody for who they are. And that's what made that place kind of really, really, really wild. But I'll give you a quick story. I was at the club one night and I was dancing with this girl, and for some reason, she must have been high on something. I don't know what it was. But I was dancing with her, hot girl, and we kept on teasing each other, like, I'm coming into you, you're coming to me. I would go on top of her and grind on top of her, and then all of a sudden, she'd slap me. And I was like, and I stood back. And then I'm still dancing, but I was shocked that she slapped me. And then she teased me again to come at her again, and we would grind each other. And all of a sudden, as soon as she got too excited, she'd slap me. And after a while, the slap started to get harder and harder. And I stopped for a minute, and I was like, I can't do this anymore because I'm getting my ass kicked. But it was surprising because I was like, wow, this is like something I shouldn't touch, but it's something I would. So, you have the experiences with people in there. I didn't take her home, to answer your question, Marina. I didn't take her home, but you could find your fantasies. You could find your fantasies, and it was all right. And people were willing to show you their fantasies, and that was good about it. I mean, it wasn't as crazy as Players Retreat or someplace like that, but it was a couple of notches down from it, but it gave you that excitement to say, you know what, I'll come back. And people did come back and dressed up.
What's the most shocking thing you saw in the garage?
Oscar?
Oh man. I mean, there was but she basically, okay, there was one of the ladies she had a partner too, but she, during the heat of the night, she would always take her top off and dance topless.
I met her.
Because of normal, but in the garage, everybody knew her, and she was with her partner. And at a certain time of the peak part of the party, and this is like in the wee hours, she would take off her top and dance topless.
Oh, ask you a question. Was this you said partner? Was this a girl and a girlfriend?
I think so, bro.
I'm gonna tell you something. One of my first experiences when I went to the garage for the first time was probably that same woman. I'll explain. I had went to the garage with a friend of mine, with a friend of mine, and I knew about this club, and my cousin was a member, and I didn't know he was gay, and he was like, "Yo, man, you go to the garage?" I said, "Yeah, I was going to the garage," and he said, "Well, I'm a member of the garage. You want to go?" And I said, "Yeah." So I had been to all the other clubs out there. I was going to, Leviticus and Nipanimas and Othello's and Ones and all these other clubs. And I was like, I'm finally going to the garage. So I told my boy, I said, "Yo, dude, we're going to go to the garage. We're going to go to the garage." All right. So we go there online and we're waiting there. And we're noticing, I meet my cousin who's a member, and he's standing there, and he's waiting online. And I'm looking, I noticed I first saw these, when I was getting there to the club, before I met my cousin there, I saw these group of girls, about maybe 4 of them, 5 of them. And they were hot, light skin, beautiful hair, that kind of, that yellow bone girls, right? And I was checking them out. I'm like, they go into the club too. And they were a little bit before me, ahead of me on the line. But then when I looked behind me, I didn't see any other, I saw guys going in the line, but I didn't see any more girls. So I was like, okay, maybe these must be the only girls, you know, maybe there's more girls in the club. I had no clue that it was a gay club. I had no clue it was a gay club. So when I got in there and I'm noticing that me and my friend was there and the music was pumping and it was like that, this atmosphere went up the ramp and we had this great, you know, the excitement of like, where am I going? And we're going to a secret club. The music was going on, the you know, past the coat check room, the dressing room, the crystal room. I was going to all these little rooms and we get on the main floor and whatever. I went there and I'm listening to all these people dancing. Most of them predominantly are men, but they're partying and the music is off the fucking chain. So I'm on the top and I'm looking at this shit and I'm like, me and my friend look at each other and like, damn, we're in a fucking gay club. You can't leave yet, but we're here. And we start to notice that those same girls that we're looking at, the girls I told you about, they were in the middle of the crowd and they start taking their tops off. And me and my friend looked at each other and was like, damn, this is the bomb. This is the shit. Women are taking their tops off. Oh, God, yeah. So, and those girls are all together. So I didn't realize they were lesbians. All I did was realize these fine girls are taking their tops in and they're feeling comfortable in front of all these gay men. So this must be the place where women can get really freaky at. We're like, yeah. So it gets to another point where me and my boy there, and we see these two black girls, two sisters, and we're like, hey, how are you? And they're looking at, and we're looking at them, and they're like, hey, how are you, girls? And they're looking at us going like, we don't want to be bothered with you right now. And we're wondering why they didn't want to talk to us. They were looking at two other guys on the side. And this was in the coffee room, I call it. That's the refreshment room, where the punch bowl was and everything else. And they're looking at these two guys, these two guys, and I'm saying to the girls, hey girls, hey, like, hey, we're here. Hey, you wanna give us some love? And they're like, no, you're not as cute as these cute guys over here. And I'm looking at them, thinking to myself, ladies, we're gonna give you one more chance. Hey, and they're like, oh. And so me and my friend look at the girls and say, look, they're gay. And they're going like, no, they're not. It's like, they're gay. It's like, no, they're not. So as the two guys are talking to each other, a third guy comes over and says, hi, girls, and on the guy's cheeks. And the girls they were like, holy shit, we're in a fucking club. And me and my friend looked at each other like,
your hand is on the microphone.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So
repeat what you just said because we didn't hear it.
Okay. So we told the girls later when we realized the girls had realized that they were in a gay club and realized that the two boys, the two guys that she was looking at, and a third guy came over to the two guys and gave them a kiss on each other's cheek, like hello, how are you? Not to the boys. The girls didn't realize they were in a gay club and that we were right. So the girls decided that they had this look on their face like they just fucked up. They were like, fuck. And they're like, oh, and so the girls stopped, and one of the girls looked at me and she says, so are you two guys gay? And we were like, no. They grabbed our hands, we were on the dance floor, we grinded them all night long. We didn't take them home, but we had the best fucking time.
I hear you. So I want to mention also another shocker was that at the Museum of History, I believe it was, they was having a King Tut exhibit in New York City.
Okay.
Garage jumped on and mimicked a King Tut party. And even Michael himself and everybody on the staff got dressed up in different kind of wares of these Egyptian wear. It was an outrageous party, man.
Was Puma Lee there? Was Puma Lee in this group? Puma Lee.
You got me, man. I don't know.
Puma Lee, and there was a whole group of dancers. Michelle Saunders, Puma Lee, Shanawa Whitehead. These were all the group that hung out in the corner that used to dress up in the outfits. They would dress up like Cowboys and Indians one week. The time when they had the beach party, they come out with the beach with bikinis and beach outwear. The toga party, what you're talking about, they would come out like with the toga outfits, all gold and everything else like that, or the toga party, which was like a white cloth that went around them or whatever, and with sandals on. That was a group of people who used to do that. Called we never. I thought we used to call them the Indians. My friends used to call them the Indians, but they never gave themselves a name. And I'll show you pictures of them in a minute.
Okay.
Those are the questions that I had on the garage. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I just want to go over you a quick list because of back in the Bronx, we had a spot at this time that was a really highlight spot, and it was called a 310.5 on Intervale Avenue. So there was quite a few spots in the Bronx. They had something called Chess and Soir. They also had something called Tapestry. There was a part of the Bronx which is called Westchester Avenue. And fast forward today at 2020, have you ever been up to the Bronx yourself? Or New York in that part? Okay, there's a beach. The name of the beach is called Orchard Beach. So what you basically do on a Sunday weekend, summertime, you hang out all day Sunday at the beach, and then in the early part, before it got late evening, you will go to a spot called Side Street. So at this time in the late 70s, also quite a few of them were dress up places, but the Mecca one for really great dancers was this 310.5. And I would just also like to say, I mean, like, how can you say this one? Yes, the time when they had the guest DJs come down to the garage was a great time also. You know, and overall, I would always say, man, listen, any place you go, they're gonna know a little bit about this place and what it did for the movement. Besides Chicago putting the name on it, but basically they made a great movement, man, when they, just went on and what Larry had did and the other people that was participating with that also, and West End Records, they got the guy, I don't know, I'm sure you heard of Kenton Nix. He had produced and put out Tanya Gardner for a while there, early in her days. Kenton Nix, okay?
Ren McCrae, Funky Sensation.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, yeah, it was a great time, a great era, and you're not going to get a dance floor, I don't think that I know of, where they actually put the brain set together and put sand underneath the goddamn wooden floor. Okay? I mean, not too many people even know that part about it, but outstanding kind of buildup that they did overall. Not just that movie room, that dance floor, it could observe those thousands of people on the floor, and it helped body-wise. Yeah, did it make a difference? Of course it made a difference.
Yeah.
So my part in being part of that staff, I always said to all the other staff people that were there, yeah, we love what we did, and we did it to the best of our ability, man. And we made it. And like when mentioned the part as far as what Lewis said, when Noel was still around at that time at the door, if you had some shade or something like that, and these are probably, I can say, not just the garage, but even other clubs that were part of that same kind of era, they basically, you wouldn't get in. You wouldn't get into the club, And besides, the other one is, I don't know how many people that didn't have membership. Sometimes you go down there, the queue, you had to wait sometimes. And it would be sometimes even wintertime. You still waited on a goddamn long queue outside. And then sometimes people that had the membership, they could get their admitted free and have somebody and bring them in. So people will go out there without the membership and wait for somebody to get them in.
But those cards would get cut. Those cards would get cut by the staff at the door would cut your card if you broke the rules. I seen a guy go, true story, knew a guy.
Wow.
Not knew a guy, but I was at the line waiting on the garage. I had my card membership. He came and asked me, he said, hey man, can you get me into the club? And this was this guy who came in and it's like, yo dude, I got plenty of money. I want to go to this club. I want to go into the club. Why can't I go in this club? I want to go in this club. I'm like, dude, it's a private membership club. Are you a member? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you can't do this. And I'm looking at staff. I'm waiting online. So this guy starts to ask everybody on the line, you remember? You remember? Now the guys at the door are looking at this shit. And they all know the rules. They already know the deal. And all the members know the deal on the line. They're going like, we could get our membership taken away. That's our first rule of thumb. We can't do that. So the guy goes down the street. The guy that had the money was trying to say, look, I want to get into this club or whatever. He goes to the corner. He sees somebody else. We all turn around to see where this guy's going. We notice he grabs a member coming around the corner. He walks up there. He comes back with the member, gets online. We're all waiting to see what happens. The guy goes in, the member goes in to give the card because the guy that had the money said, look, to get me in, I'll give you $20. So that's the admission of getting into the club. Guy said, okay, sure. Went in there, had the membership card, gave it to Noel, gave it to, was it, I forgot the guy at the door, I forgot what his name was. But what happened is he looked at the card, he looked at the member, he looked at the card, he looked at the member, he looked at the other guy who was standing there thinking, yeah, I couldn't get in before, but now I can get in. Guy, this is true. He took a cigar box out that had a clicker in it, had some other stuff in it, and it had a pair of scissors. He took the scissors out and he went and cut the card. People in the line were like, oh, shoot. The guy that the member was crying. He was like, no, you cut my card. I was like, you know the rules. You know the rules. So I knew that club was strict about what they said. So as much as you think you could do it, if you knew somebody and you wanted to get them in, you had to be all around the block. You couldn't let the staff know that you did that. And that's one of the rules on it.
But I also just like to add in also the fact that, for the time of the people that supported the garage and other underground clubs and so forth that crossed over and ones that are still that hopefully that as soon as time gets better for everybody, that hopefully that they can meet again in whatever different type of a way. But the one thing I can say, I mean, obviously the Loft has his reunion parties, but even going into a garage reunion party, would you get the same kind of a feeling? I would always say yes. So if ever that takes place again, and when there's people from all other parts of the world that want to get to New York, and if they're still able to do it again like that, and if they have a garage reunion party, like I said, they usually do it every year. Yeah, you should try to get to one. You should definitely try to get to one. The one you have to get to, I would suggest we have to be the one in New York. Again, like I said, they did the Ministry Sound. I don't know if the Ministry Sound is going to continue to do another one in the future. But if you ever want to get a feeling of it, because a lot of the ones that are still here with us, that are still alive, they show up. It's not a question that they don't show up because they look forward to seeing each other who are still here. And at the same time, the younger ones that never got a taste of it, to bring them in on it. And it would be the best place where you can get a taste. Not the same location, because the building is gone, but you get the spirit of it from the older ones and the younger ones that eventually had a taste of it, and you could be under that same feeling. So, and I really want to thank you, like I said, Enrico himself. Shout out to brother Rico, Scott, for getting in contact with you and allowing me to share the history, a little bit of it. And like I said, pictures, how Michael put it when he expressed it, Jackson himself, pictures, there's 1,000 words in a picture, and that being said and done, I thankful at that time and even afterwards, always having the camera and being able to catch certain moments, man, but yeah, and there's some of the guys that we still stay in contact for sure, and it's always a great talk, always great talks, and I just did something right before the birthday and Luce was one of the contributors. I had people either do whatever it is for 1 or 2 minute video, and as I caught up with these people in my life circles of the dancing and mainly from that era, we shared memories before they even did the videos for me. I mean, in emotional times too behind it, just knowing that we're still here today and thankful, man, for another day behind that, and can still share the love to others, man. whatever way it be, DJing, music, dance, singing, and so forth, you know. So to all your guys here and coming in, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And thank you for still being around and doing what your guys are doing, man. And keep up the works, man. Keep up the great works with it.
Thank you.
I appreciate these venues because right now we all have that experience, and if it's a one-shot deal, or we work there, or we members, whatever, or we're learning about it. I mean, the thing about it is the special time and special place that made a lot of things happen. And give so many smiles to so many people that now their whole mentality and their attitude changes on how they take life. So and bring on many different generations of understanding it. I think appreciate it that you're doing this movement, because there's a lot of people like the young lady who left earlier who have that same issue, that they don't understand what it is to feel something. They don't understand what it is to go to a body and soul party. They don't understand to go to the garage. They don't understand to go to 718. They don't understand to go to the shelter. They have no clue about this situation, and they're asking to feel something because the rest of their community is not feeling anything, and they feel very lost about that. So any bit of this information to them will maybe let them feel it's all right to let go. It's all right to be flirtatious on the dance floor. It's all right to play on the dance floor. It's all right to roll on the dance floor. It's all right to make a mistake on the dance floor. It's not rocket science. It's simple logic.
Amen.
Thank you all.
There, can I get you? Can I get you on it?
Okay. Yeah, I
Okay.
got the same one.
Yeah.
Larry's got the green shirt on.
Oh, which one
Okay.
you got? Which shirt is?
He's got the green shirt on in the picture. That's Larry. Discussing, and most of the guys around him.
Billy Graham is too.
Okay.
Superstar Billy Graham is on it too.
You know, there's quite a few people on there. David Padilla. I mean, I can go on the list. And most of these guys, they were basically hanging out from the gallery, you know?
Mike Stone.
Hey, and DJ Peter, man, Peter Lightbrown, listen, I would like to get to your neck of the woods sometime in the future when things calm down.
Yes.
You know? Definitely be in contact and looking forward to putting up some new stuff again, man. Too,
Oh, man. Honestly, I would love to get you up here to do like some kind of workshop and talk, you know, to show them the old garage freestyle and Loft and kind of how they threw down, because I want to try to cultivate that in our city. And there are a lot of, you know what I'm saying? So when things die down, we'll talk, you know what I mean?
Question, how's the house scene there, sir?
Well, no, it's you know, I tell you, Montreal, Montreal it's pretty, it's there. You know, they had a big first of all, they made a big splash in dance music, period, with the likes of
what's the Filipino kid's name?
Jojo Flores, yeah. Jojo Flores.
Jojo, yeah, I used to know Jojo back in the day, yeah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like we've the city had a pretty pronounced club scene. It's very elaborate, and yes, there is a consciousness, but not obviously not like New York. But thing is, you know, Montreal has had made a splash in dance music in the '80s. You know, with Geraldine Hunt. You know, Can't Fight the Feeling. That's a Montreal record.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Susie Q, Get Up, Do It Again. That's a Montreal record. Gino Socio.
Oh, okay.
Dancer, Montreal. So yeah, there was and there was Sherry Murphy's Law. You know, they're all from Montreal.
Okay, here we go. Big time, brother.
Family, yeah, exactly. So over the years, you know, I'm 20. I was 22 when I went to the garage. And so from then on, it implanted something to me to cultivate that in my city, and I did the best I could. You know, we had a club called Option, which featured Byron Stingley and Freddie Shannon from Shelter. We did all that. Yeah, we all did that. You know, so me and my boys have been on the front line trying to bring that black dance music underground feel, you know, represent that. You know, the T. Scott, all that we represent, you know what I'm saying? So where we are right now, of course, with the pandemic, things slowed down and everything. But yeah, it's small, but it's it's there, you know, like the consciousness is there. The club stereo was
Yeah, I remember I went to Stereo once.
Yes, it was fashion at the garage. That's
Right.
a garage, but it's much more darker, harder edge.
Yes, it is. It was more technology.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, yeah, to get Louis Vega or Kerry Chandler there, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's mainly the dark house.
Yes, I know it was the dark. It was cool, but it was the dark, and I know
It's great. You know, it's all good, but we're not there yet. You know, to get that ultimate party.
Yeah.
You know, representing the loft in the garage. So it's an ongoing thing.
Yes. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
As long as we keep it alive, man. Got to keep it alive.
Exactly. One way or the other. We have some great DJs, some legends. Tony DeCipris. He's kind of like a garage member. I mean, not a member, but he ran the Shore Record Pool of Montreal. There was a Montreal branch of the Shore Record Pool, and Tony DeCipris ran that.
Okay.
And so he's been like the kind of the pillar of that consciousness. He brought a lot of people to the garage, and so he's very important part of our city, you know, in that regard. So, you know, and so I was very blessed that I was able to join that when I was 22 years old, and you know, and I went to the garage, and I remember when you talked about how strict it was to get in there. I remember it's at Vinyl Mania, and a buddy of mine I befriended, and he told me, call the garage, you know, don't go back to Montreal till you go to the garage. And he was like adamant, because before I was intimidated. I was like, wow, I don't know, and blah, blah, blah. And then, no, you better. So he gave it a number, and I remember Noel answered the phone. I almost dropped the phone. I was like, oh, really? Yeah, he just said garage. I'm like, I'm from Montreal, and I told him, look, I explained to him, look, I'm from Montreal, and I can't go back to Montreal until I experience it. And, you know, bless him, God bless him. He said, okay, Peter, that was it. I mean, it was, I just can't, like, to this day, I think the chills, the hairs on my skin just pop up, just seeing everyone dressed in white, because it was the last Easter white party.
I feel you, man.
The last Easter white party at the garage. So that meant that I had the Friday and Saturday experience in one night.
Wow. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? The Friday and Saturday night experience in one night. I mean, the just the contrast of, you know, it was like, wow. I mean, I remember I was on that dance floor when he played Touch Without You. If you didn't have a diaper on, you're gonna pee in your pants because you were not moving on that dance floor. It was so cramped, and people were waiting for that record, and they were like, and that'll stay with me for the rest of my life. That's it.
I feel you, my brother. I feel you, man. I feel you. You know.
I gotta show you one little thing, also before this. Yeah. That was Puma Lee.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So you asked me about that time or whatever, and it sounds like the toga party you're talking. I mean, is that the toga party you're talking about? Because I thought some people wore white too.
And the well was dressed up too. Everybody this it. Michael and Ariel got this, and everybody got dressed. I think the only one that didn't get dressed might have been Larry, but everybody else.
Larry didn't get dressed up.
You know. Yeah.
They worked there. You ain't got to get dressed up.
Anyway, fellas. Okay.